All right. Well, it's the 20th of November, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the podcast dude. Just kidding. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. This is In the Image Clothing Company podcast. So, yeah, I take back the just kidding because I am the podcast dude in this realm of In the Image Clothing Company. That is what I am. Because yeah, we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, and here is our 9th episode. And check that out. Right as I said that, we're 40 seconds into it. 9 is the number of birth. 40 is this number that the Israelites were in the desert for. Anyway, I love numbers. Let's get into this. What I mean by let's get into this is we can just go from there, but let's do a little bit of an intro as we do. In the Image Clothing Company is a company that I have founded, and we talk about the skeletal system of the human body, because the body's not about the fat content, it's not about the muscle mass, because those things come and go at different points in our life. We have different amounts of them. But the body's about the skeletal system and a natural position, and just being able to operate out of there and do everything from the only way the body actually works. So we discuss clothing because it's the only thing placed physically on our bodies, basically always. There's nothing else in life that we can come in contact to that degree or that can alter us to that degree. So clothing needs to stay centered, it needs to fit correct, pants entirely above the hips, slightly higher in the front than the rear. The seams on the top of the shoulders need to be behind that little bone that's actually your collarbone, and that just allows them to be in their natural position. And then ideally the edge seams of the shoulders just right at the very edges. That's just how clothing has to sit on everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or 80 or 3 or whatever, how age or what. Yeah, because the skeletal system just has to work the way that it does. So that's how it's going to be allowed to. Now, we also discuss flat things in the world. Our hands have this natural rounding to them, and our feet have a natural arch that grips inward, good nails on the hands and toes, well, the fingers, specifically with the hands, to allow support for the natural body to work. So we discuss things like that. We discuss, just allowing the body to work. The keyword's always allow here. We've removed things and we simplify. We're not adding anything ever, at least until today's date. So, yeah, 2 prerequisites that I've had since before I founded In the Image Clothing Company, just to allow the body to have a chance, and then we get into depth from there, to operate natural, right? As if it had never been altered, is what natural means. So, the way that our God designed our bodies to work. Lacing your shoes with In the Image Clothing Company shoelacing technique. Our official domain where you can find us is InTheImageClothingCompany.com. Today's date is, it's still not a date that you can quite go there, but that's where you will go. Anywhere you can find us online, though. The technique includes just tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside on both sides. All the technique does is allow the foot to be unaltered. It's just shaped like the foot. Okay, now pairing that with removing all the tags from all of your clothing. Anywhere a tag is placed within clothing, it's causing a gap that's altering the body's workings in that location. And within the tongues of the shoes, they're slippery and synthetic, and the arch within your foot can't quite grip natural. So we remove those as well. So, yeah, that's the intro that I'm going to stick with for this. As far as there's no more to say with this podcast episode for what I've been discussing as far as the intro goes. We're going to just get right into the podcast episode because I love the podcast. Here at the podcast, In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, we discuss the gospel of Jesus Christ. That is the point of this podcast. I do still have an intro, discuss the prerequisites like I just did, but from there, we're not like a clothing company within this podcast. We are disciples of Jesus Christ. We spread the gospel. We sit here and discuss things, and we meaning just me up until this episode. But as the team grows down the line, whoever we decide to bring on here, we'll bring on, and we'll have, discussions between more people than just one. So, but as of now, no, I love this. And it never would have to be more people necessarily, because it's a good place for me just as the founder to kind of show who I am, right? Because if there's a whole company that I have started, it's You want to know some stuff about me? That's the whole point, right, of this podcast, is to get real and raw and break down, as I say, my walls, our own walls, each other's walls, and just get so real. We don't beat around the bush. We don't sugarcoat things. We don't please here, because that's the whole point. Is this is a place to help me grow as well, and it actually has. I'm going to address that there is a fridge. Last time I filmed, meaning last episode in this location, I addressed that fridge might turn on and off. So if you're hearing that audio, that's what it is, but I don't care. So, yeah, I really want to get into giving ourselves away. Now, I want to actually shout out Diani Neves. She's a YouTuber. She's much more than that. She's a mentor. She's a disciple. She is amazing, actually. She's a wonderful person. And I've watched a lot of her videos on YouTube, and she's great. The reason I'm shouting her out, though, right now, other than the reason I just said, is she actually just put out a video about 13 hours ago, and it was a lot of what she said within that video is what, similar things to what I'm going to discuss in this. Then she kind of inspired this episode of the podcast. Actually, I wasn't really planning on filming a podcast right now, but there's always the ability to be open to being used as a vessel whenever and wherever and however you're told to, if you can, right? As in tune as we can be with doing things that, wow, I didn't really expect to do this, but sweet, yeah, I'll sit down right now and we'll do it. That's awesome. That's ideally how we should be always, is just be willing to do what we're prompted to do. So, anyway, yeah, that's all I'm really going to mention about her right now, is that she kind of jump-started my episode here of this podcast, specific episode. So, yeah, check her out if you'd like to. She's awesome. But yeah, anyway, so I want to discuss similar things, like I'm saying, to what she said within this last video that she just posted. And what I am picking out of what the many things that she said within there is the idea of giving yourself away. And I mean, everything I'm going to say from here is just out of my own being, but she just jump-started the idea. So, yeah, when I go through this life and look at people, it's so common to see people just giving themselves away. And I'm going to get in all aspects of this when it gets down to talking about it throughout this podcast episode. And I don't know why my voice is sounding like this. But, it doesn't just mean giving yourself away physically. It doesn't just mean giving your emotions away and, letting other people kind of dictate and control your emotions. It doesn't just mean giving your money away to other people. It doesn't just have one avenue, but giving yourself away. We are what we are, and we only have as much of that as we have. And I want to say this correct, because I don't really know how to approach this. This is something I haven't really talked about publicly before, and this is something that I've struggled with myself personally as well. So that's why it's going to be good for me too, not just to have as a podcast episode as if I'm standing here and preaching to people out of I'm so good at this, so listen to me. No, I mean, that's stuff I got to learn too, and stuff that I have struggled with big time and still do, always will. I mean, we're humans. No matter how less we struggle with one thing, we're still going to struggle with everything forever in this life, because we're just, imperfect. So, with that being said, yeah, I mean, a lot of times people just give themselves away. What I'm going to focus on for right now is people like to just go kiss around and sleep around and do whatever they want with their physical body. And I never understood that. That's something I've never struggled with at all. I've struggled with lust big time. I've struggled with, doing my own things and, the sexual realm in my, intellect and desires, and of course, just because meaning I'm a human being. And that's actually a lot of what I talked about within the last podcast episode titled Dependence, right? But that was episode 8 of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. If you'd like to go watch it, listen to it, either way, it's in both forms, so audio and visual. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely struggled with my own stuff when it comes to giving myself away or whatever, but I've never in my life struggled with any kind of kissing people just to kiss them or anything like that physical. I mean, that's something that never was appealing to me at all. Out of my own being, I'd be why? I mean, why would you? Don't take this as a judgmental thing, what I'm saying right here, but in all seriousness, this is how it comes out of me. It's why would you want to kiss somebody just to walk away? I sat on that for a second. Those of you that are just listening to this in audio form know your audio didn't cut out. I just want to sit on that for a second. Let that sink in. That happens. People will kiss each other and walk away. People will sleep with each other and walk away. People will just like do whatever they want physically and get nothing from it except for like whatever endorphins get released in the moment and then walk away. Now, I'm gonna definitely, like I said, struggle with my own things, but it's my own things, like within my own house alone kind of stuff, right? And again, go check out the last podcast episode titled Dependence if you'd like to hear a little bit of my own story. You know, I mean, we all struggle with things. No matter what I say within this podcast episode, I'm not just condemning others. We all struggle with the same things in different ways or different things in the same ways, okay? And that's something I understand. But, yeah, I mean, when you're doing things that involves another human being, that's different than doing things that is only involving yourself. Because those things can be just as much sins as the other way, but doing anything that involves somebody else is affecting their life as well. And that's not something that, because that's what'll happen is people like go around kissing people and then like running away and kissing someone else and doing this and doing that with whoever they want to do it with. And anyway, then they just kind of think that they don't have any kind of like accountability that they have to take if they don't choose to. It goes back to that whole like my truth, your truth thing, as if you can decide what your truth is. And I have said so many times how disgusting that is. There's only one truth, and he has a name, and he is our God, Jesus Christ. And people try to have their own truth, and if they believe that they can do that, then they can just say, well, I believe that it's okay. These are not my words, but people would say that they believe that it's okay to go kiss somebody and walk away and kiss another person and walk away because they believe that that's what they can do and that's their truth. Well, that doesn't happen. That can't be, because that's not just you. That's you can't kiss another human without another human there to do that with. You know, and kissing could be sex. Kissing could be sleeping with each other without actual like sex, right? I mean, sleeping could be going on dates and the other person doesn't think anything of it, or you do, or vice versa, or whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be just like only like the most like, you know, nitty gritty of whatever, but I mean, like any degree of anything is just anything that involves another human being. You can't just choose to do whatever you want with them and just leave it as if like it was your choice, because you essentially like took their choice from them by doing that. It's kind of strange how far people get from truth, you know. And again, I'm not condemning, but the behavior is what it is, no matter who's doing it, even if it was I doing it, right? I mean, it's not about just like me sitting here on a pedestal saying people are doing stuff wrong. No, if it was me doing it, it'd be just as bad, is all I'm saying, right? It's the behavior, it's terrible. Because I've been on the end of that before. People thinking they can just like kiss me and then like leave, and they're like confused on why I'm upset that like all of a sudden they walked out of my life. And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't kiss. Okay, I don't want this to sound like I'm better than anybody else, because make your own decisions, be your own human being. We're all making mistakes in our own ways, but I've only ever kissed 2 people in my life. I'm 25 years old, and I'm not saying everybody has to do that or take my path or whatever, but it's what I'm saying is like people will just give themselves away. But on the other end, the other person doesn't really have a choice, because the point with me saying that I've only kissed 2 women in my life is that this last one that I did kiss, she just kind of walked away, and I couldn't even get a hold of her, and it was as if she thought that I was like overstepping by trying to contact her after we like exchanged this like time together. I don't know, it's just weird stuff, right? On her end, she was like, well, I don't know, I'm just in college, I can do whatever I want. I'm like, well, you can't do whatever you want that involves me, because that's not whatever you want. That's taking my decisions away. As far as my decision to have any say or resolve after that, if you just walk away, it's like, well, what do you expect me to do? You know? Again, if it was me doing it on the other end, it'd be the same thing. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It's the behavior. It's terrible. Because there is no your choice or your truth or your decisions if it's involving somebody else in that kind of way. That's not just you. And I think that's one of the biggest things to focus on with the whole giving yourself away to people, is what it's doing to the person you're giving yourself to. Because to her, this woman who was doing this to me, right? Her giving herself away to me was just like, she's just throwing herself around as if she has no worth of her own. But then in doing that on my end, it's like it affected me as much as it was her self-worth problems. Now it's on my end, like, well, what am I worth? Because I thought that you were going to spend time with me because you're saying that and you're doing that, and then all of a sudden you're gone as if you don't care. And so a lot of times your own self-worth is actually really affecting other people's ability to have like a sense of what their self-worth is. And that's weird. It's just weird how much we can affect each other, and a lot of people don't think that it even matters. They're like, well, I don't know. I mean, you, like, that's the thing is, because I've said that before, right? If we get offended over something, that really is on us. But in a case like this, it's not just like getting offended over something, right? It's like, I had no choice to know that you were just playing around when I was like a real person trying to live a real life, you know? It's kind of weird, man. I mean, because in that case, it's like, what I'm saying with getting offended is if she was just all like, well, it's up to you to get offended. No, it is not. You know, if she's giving herself to me, but in a way that she's portraying it as like she's going to be there, that is not like my fault for getting hurt. Right? That's crazy behavior to have. It's weird, man. I mean, people don't realize what it does to give themselves away, because you're not just harming yourself. Because if your self-worth's already just garbage, then you're probably just treating yourself that way anyway. But you give yourself away to somebody who's so genuine and would like probably die for you if they actually genuinely love you. And then you just like walk away as if like, I don't know, I'm just going to go give myself to the next person now. And the next person, this person that you gave yourself to who actually has such a good heart, and their whole life can be thrown upside down because now they're like, well, what the heck just happened? That's the situation I was in this last year. Man, I've talked about that experience a little bit. I think it was in the 3rd episode of the podcast. Oh, I don't even know for sure, actually. 3rd or 4th or 5th, right around in there, of the In the Image Clothing Company podcast. One of those, I think it was actually titled Real Love. So whichever episode that was, but that's the situation I got in. I was like, caught up with this person who was just so used to giving herself away. And so anything that did happen on my end of things, it wasn't on me, because I was totally just like thinking that a relationship was happening, and she was just thinking I'll just do this behavior that she was so used to doing with another person, and it didn't really mean anything whether it was me or another guy or a log. I just want to say how silly it is. I mean, it could be some kind of like toad in the woods, you know what I mean? Just like give herself away in whatever way it could possibly be. And it doesn't have to be specifically X or Y or what, but yeah, I mean, people don't realize what their actions are doing, because your like dirt self-worth can tear somebody else down, because people love, and people love hard, and I'm one of those people, and I don't let people in. That's another one of those things I'm going to sit on for a second, because yeah, sure, you know, maybe that's not the best thing. But that's the whole point, is that's what's going to lead people to not let people in. Because somebody having this whole behavior of just being okay with, like, within their own being, of giving themselves away to others, is going to, depending on the person that they do that with, potentially cause that person to stop opening themselves up. And so then this person who gave themselves away, and that's just their normal behavior, and they don't care, and they throw themselves around, open their legs and open their bodies, open their spirit, and pretend that they care, and then move on. This other person who loves so hard now potentially is like very wounded, and could be for life if they don't, you know, really get, you know, the help that they need, you know. That's crazy, man, because that happens so often. Yeah, and it's sad. because people don't realize, like, that girl that did that to me last year, I'm like, I was planning on dying for that woman, you know, marrying her, spending my life with her, because that's what she was, like, showing that she was ready to do. But she just, like, doesn't care. Go give herself away to the next guy. Go give herself away to the next guy. Go give herself away to a stump in the wood. I mean it. I just mean how silly it is. I'm addressed for a second, just like for the sake of comedic relief. This fireplace behind me is entirely fake. It's a television. Those of you listening to this in audio form, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm sitting in front of a TV and I just turned on fireplace thing on YouTube, so yeah. Comedic relief, because I know that was getting a little bit, like, tense. It sounded like I'm getting all heated. I'm not, like, heated about it, but this disgusting behavior stuff that I had to, oh man. Well, that's funny, is because I can sit here and complain about it, but, well, I mean, yeah, she did some terrible things. Unexcusable, terrible things that she never apologized for, and I tried to be the one that apologized many times, and she never even allowed me to have a conversation about it, right? But it was a lot of learning. It was something placed from the Father in my life to learn from and grow from, because I myself had a, man, yeah, see, Deani Neves, man, she's got some beautiful messages within her content, YouTube video content. That's the only place I've ever seen her on is YouTube, but she has herself on other platforms. She does, like, mentorships and stuff as well, but no, she was talking about that, where, like, because she had, you know, she's had similar experiences. I'm not trying to tell her story. I don't want to, like, throw her under the bus on accident or say something that she, you know, yeah. But again, just coming back to my experience, but getting this, like, jump start from her video to be able to film this episode here. You know, out of my experience, what I experienced last year with this woman, I have to take entire accountability, and I was prepared to and willing to at the time, and I was trying to, but I couldn't even get a hold of her to, like, do that. It was very, very strange behavior that she did and had. It was honestly just disgusting and so childish. When I was, like, an adult, 24 years old, I was a man, I was ready to start a family. I made it very clear, and she was just throwing herself around to whoever. It was disgusting. I didn't even see that at the time. I was, like, swooning over her and literally would have died for her at the time, and now I'm like, ew, that was just the most disgusting thing that you have done to anybody, and it happened to be me that you did it to. But on my end of things at that time, I had settled for something that I did not need or want at all, and I, like, tried to make myself believe that I wanted it. Like, well, I think there's part of me that wanted it. You know, I mean, like, because I want a family, and I want kids, and I want a wife, but I want it, you know, obviously centered around and in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And she kind of made herself look like she was so centered with Christ. And I'm not judging her people for not be, or people's levels of that, but the point is, she was making herself be something she wasn't, be seen as something she wasn't. And that was the whole manipulative deception that I got deceived by, right? Yeah, a lot happened with that situation to me, but, you know, I kind of, like, saw in her what I wanted to see. She was making it that way, but I wasn't being as discerning as I could be, and I, you know, didn't see through all these red flags. That's the biggest thing, because I saw the red flags, but I just, like, looked past them because this must be it. I mean, yeah, I could tell how deceptive she was, but every time that I, like, saw something like that in her, or, like, saw things that didn't quite line up, or, like, heard things that she was saying that I just, like, chose to ignore, it was all this, like, on my end, you know, being kind of okay with it, like, you know, I guess, you know, kind of, like, casual about it, like, yeah, all right, cool, sure, I guess she's my wife, rather than, like, you know, not settling. And so, as much as she had this terrible self-worth, and that's just why she would give herself away, to a degree, my self-worth needed to improve as well, because I was going to settle for something that was evil. And that's something crazy to do, you know? On my end, that's a terrible thing as well. Really. Like, actually, that's terrible. Darn, and that's something I didn't even realize until quite recent as well. mean, it was only a year ago this situation happened, a little over, but, probably about 14, 15 months ago. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't realize how much I was just willing in that moment to settle, because I would have woken up to it later, and it would have all fell apart and gone nuts and crazy and just been a whole thing, And so, I mean, but the point is, with everything in life, it happens how it should. Our God is orchestrating everything. No matter how much anybody wants to think they're in charge, we are not. I don't care who you think you are, what you think you are, what kind of authority you think you have over someone else. Bro, we're equals. That's it. So I don't care about that. Oh gosh. Point being, we're not in charge. Like, everything that happens is used, together for the good of those that serve God. And even situations like that, as hard as it was to go through at the time, well, I learned a lot from it, because in a sense, like, I was giving myself away, right? Sticking with that topic, because I would have given and given and given again and just given to her. Like I was saying, like, I felt like I was like ready to die for her, and she like hadn't even shown enough like actual care to me, other than like batting her like beautiful little eyes and like, you know what I mean, just like the slutty behavior. She never actually showed that she like cared for me, and I would have like done anything for her at the time, which is terrible. That's me giving myself away, giving all my, because I'm a very capable, competent human being, and I got a big, I don't want to say more out of pride, but what I mean is, I guess that's probably all I gotta say, is I'm very capable, very competent, very smart, to the point that, like, I mean, I've got this company to run now that I hadn't started at the time, and things like that. And being with that woman, if I would have really just like somehow ended up spending my life with her, I would have just been giving everything to her, and she would have just taken it. But at the same time, she was like giving herself away, but in like only a physical type of emotional kind of way. And I would have just been like loving, out of such an unhealthy dynamic. But yeah, on my end, again, because I have to take accountability for everything that I've done, even though the situation wasn't my fault, I was still giving myself away in that kind of sense, to where like, well, there we go. Giving it, a scripture to associate with, casting your pearls before swine. That's a scripture within the Bible, and what it means, like, kind of loosely translated, is you're not going to, well, okay, not even loosely translated, we're going to just say how it is. You're not going to take beautiful pearls, right, worth something great, and just, like, give them to a swine, meaning like a pig, right, that's just going to roll in the mud and get all filthy and stuff. You have this beautiful white pearl, like a pearl necklace, comes out of a clam in the ocean, or, yeah, wherever the clams do live. They might live in other water as well, but like freshwater clams, I guess the ocean's only salt. So anyway, you're not gonna take this beautiful clam and just like give it to a dirty pig. I don't care how like rude that sounds. If it sounds like I'm talking about a woman, some women are dirty pigs, man. Some men are dirty pigs, man. I'm gonna kind of like encapsulate that with saying, in my life, there's been many times where I've been a dirty pig. So I don't sound hypocritical, but yeah, just, again, it's the behavior, no matter who's doing it, whatever we're talking about, that's like wrong, ever, because we are equal people. So whatever we do wrong, it's the behavior. It's not about just like labeling a human, but the most righteous person at one time, they can start doing some evil behavior, and no matter who's doing the behavior, it's dirty pig behavior. Yeah, I've done that. So as far as dirty pig behavior goes, I've been all over that at certain times. That should never happen, but sins should never happen, and we're sinful by nature. So holy cow, this is sweet. Check out the podcast episode 4 in the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled Repentance. I go into that, man. Anyway, when we cast your pearls before swine, that's like what I was doing in this case, like giving yourself away, as in like, if you're this pearl, you're just gonna give yourself away to some pig, right? That's what I did last year in the situation that I'm talking about. So on either end, just giving yourself away is just terrible. Now here's the point. Here's the wrap around with that. Not to wrap it up. We're going to keep rolling with the podcast episode, but I just mean like to bring that to where our giving away should be is, well, we shouldn't give ourselves away, but we should give all of our devotion to Christ. And then he'll do with us what he needs. Because if you're ever giving yourself away to a human being, you're just giving yourself away to another person who's an equal to you. What's the point in that? But if you're both equally giving your devotion to Christ, that's where that triangle comes in, right? The gospel is all about Trinity. It's all about triangles or threes. So many threes within the gospel, within Scripture. If people don't know this, God, we'll talk about this a lot, man, but this is the first time that I've like discussed this in this kind of way, really, like within the podcast. Meaning, like, this is the first time I've addressed that numbers are so important within their significance. We'll just stop it there without trying to like over-explain it. Within the Bible, yeah. Anyway, numbers are very significant within like Judaism and, you know, Hebrew, Greek and stuff. Yeah. We'll get into this, and the more that I learn too, the better I'll be able to explain that out of my own like doing, as you know, being the like podcaster, if you will. Yeah, because I mean I know some of that to a degree, and a lot of that has actually really been able to guide me because